What you're hearing there is the sound of sirens blaring in Kyiv overnight as the war in Ukraine continues to drag on, even as President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin are set to meet this Friday in Alaska. They're set to talk about an end to the war, but some European leaders are voicing concerns.
Sunrise on the Hill's Trevor Shirley is here to talk about what's ahead. And Trevor, this has been a really difficult 3.5 years for Ukraine, which would love a way out of this war, but not with giving everything up.
Yeah, and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of optimism, at least on the part of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky ahead of this Senate. Number one, he wasn't even invited, so the Ukrainians really aren't going to have a seat at this table. And there are concerns about this reference that President Trump has been making about land swaps, implying that Ukraine's going to give something up and Russia's going to give something up, which most experts say is pretty unlikely that Russia is going to cede any territory. So I think there are legitimate concerns on the part of the Ukrainians that there could be some deal brokered that doesn't really benefit the Ukrainians, that and potentially just, exacerbates the war.
I guess the question then becomes, if President Trump makes a deal with Vladimir Putin, what impetus is there for Ukraine to follow it? Have we heard anything from the White House in terms of how that could work?
Yeah, at this point, we haven't heard anything specifically from the White House. We may get some better idea of that later today. This morning, President Trump is holding a virtual summit with President Zelensky and other European leaders. I guess you can look at it as kind of a strategy session ahead of Friday's summit, but it's unclear whether or not the leaders taking part in this summit today, the virtual one, will be able to sway President Trump or kind of get a policy position in his head that's beneficial to them.
Everybody walks a fine line, right? The European leaders are somewhat solicitous to the president, but they also want to protect Europe, and protecting Europe for them means protecting Ukraine.
Yeah, and they are concerned that if there is some deal brokered between Trump and Putin, that it may end up undercutting European security.
So we know, as you mentioned, there's this sort of virtual strategy session, but a lot of folks are looking at some of the rhetoric that's coming out of the White House, and that, President Trump is honored to be inviting Vladimir Putin to Alaska. A lot of folks in Washington view Vladimir Putin as a war criminal. Just give us sort of the flavor of this summit, it being in Alaska, the fact that it's even in the U.S. to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of tracks with President Trump's previous comments and relationship with Vladimir Putin. He's always been a bit deferential to Putin, so I don't think that this was entirely too much of a surprise that he decided to invite the Russian leader to this summit in Alaska. Now, he said the other day he's going to know pretty quickly, that's President Trump, whether or not this is going to yield a deal or not. So I think at this point it's still just kind of a wait and see. You never know in these situations, and we'll get a better sense Friday.
And there are people, critics of this, who think that the president is, I think you were talking about this, validating Putin.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he is being invited onto U.S. soil to have this, summit when there were lots of other options. Rome was floated as one. Turkey was floated as a location. So I think it's significant, and it says something about at least this administration's position, that they were willing to have President Putin come to the United States.
All right, Trevor Shirley, thanks for joining us this morning. We'll see you next hour.